If you're searching for or thinking about buying a pre-construction property here in the Dominican Republic, then this video is for you. Today, I'm going to share everything that I've learned so far on how to screen or vet developers here in DR to try to minimize the risk of losing on your investment, losing your investment, or even worse, being scammed. I'm not only going to give you 3 keys that I look for when vetting any developer, but some additional things I've learned along the way that I think will be helpful to you. So let's dive in. If we haven't met yet, my name is Jamie Gruber. I've moved to the Dominican Republic in 2022 and have invested in a pre-construction property here, my own home, as well as land. And in the United States, I've purchased and sold 43 units of my own with partners, and I'm currently a general partner and a limited partner in some multifamily properties in Denver and Los Angeles. And in this channel, I try to share all the things that I've learned investing in both places to hopefully be helpful to you as you try to invest here. So the first thing I look for with any developer that I'm going to work with here in country is that they are local. I want the principal of that property, that asset, that development to be here. I want to be able to see them at the grocery store, bump into them at kids events, go to charity auctions with them, whatever it might be. I like knowing that the person developing the property, the principal of that company, is here in the country, at least if not in my own backyard in Punta Cana. By the way, I've got this makeshift little setup so you can see what I'm writing. I hope it helps. I'll get this better as we go along. The second thing I look for in a developer is that they have gone full cycle on a project or development here in the Dominican Republic, at least, if not somewhere in the world. Full cycle means essentially that they have planned, sold, completed, and issued title to buyers on a development, hopefully here in country, but I'm willing to accept that they've done it in other countries as well. There are plenty of groups that will develop property for the first time, and that's fine. I'm not saying that those are bad, but I just would rather see a physical project completed with people that have purchased, living in it, or using it, or Airbnb-ing it, whatever. That gives me more confidence that the developer is going to complete the project that I might be investing in. And then number 3 is what I want to see scar tissue. Essentially, what I want, what's best for me, is that they've had some pain. Sorry, developer, but I want to know that you've had pain. I want to know that you've been through economic downturns, that you've had issues with permitting and you've had to overcome them, that you've had delays, that you've gotten burned, that you've had to deal with some stuff. Being perfect, I struggle with that because if you haven't met some sort of failure, I don't know how you're going to do once you do, because it's inevitable. Let me share how I came up with this process for me, because it really goes back to my time investing in the United States. And in addition, I'm going to share a few other things I learned from the US that I apply here in the Dominican Republic for me. Before I go on, I want to be really clear here. I'm just sharing my thoughts, my experiences. Nobody can eliminate risk completely from your investment. And I'll share in a moment here. I've had losses even with my philosophy. Honestly, usually I've violated my own investor thesis when I have losses, but still, losses are possible, they're inevitable. But for me, when I follow my process, so far, it has minimized or eliminated losses for me. The biggest thing for you is use this information to see if it hits for you, and then form your own investment thesis. But consult with an attorney, with a realtor. In fact, I always say, you can go back to other videos, I think you should start with a realtor either way, not go straight to a developer. But I know some people will, so I want to inform you the best I can, because look, I say that, but I have. The difference for me, I think, is I know this developer, I live here, I see them every day, I've gotten to know them. If that's you, then go for it. But most people are shopping from afar or coming down here to visit 2-3 different developments and choosing between them. And without the guidance of a realtor who's here every day, I just think that, you could do it a little better if you had a realtor. All right, so in the US, I look at these 3 things: local, full cycle, and scar tissue. When I decided to partner up and invest, inevitably, in quantum capital's deals in LA and in Denver, all of these things were true there. One of the 2 main partners, each of them were in LA and in Denver. The principal, Mark, who founded the company, had been doing this since early 2000s. We're talking 20 years. So he's gone full cycle, meaning he's invested, he's refurbished, and he's exited multiple properties. In fact, I always say this in the US. I used to say this to people all the time who were trying to invest. Where do I put my money? I got 50 grand or 25 grand. I want to invest in one of these real estate deals. But there's 100 people out there, like, who's the best one? I would say, I don't know. But for me, if you want to really clear the room, have everybody answer this one question. Who here in this room, of the 100 people that are looking to raise capital for an investment in the US, how many of you existed before 2008? Raise your hand. Like 3 of them would raise their hand. So if you needed a filtering mechanism, to me, that would be the best one. Again, it doesn't mean there aren't great operators that operated after '08. I know plenty of them, but it helps clear the air when you're going back to that level of saying, wow, full cycle and through the Great Recession and still doing stuff today. And thirdly, exactly that point on scar tissue here. Mark, the principal, had been investing and doing deals through COVID, through the Great Recession, even some other downturns along the way, like shorter term blips. It really informed his investment thesis, and it created a key principle for him that I align with investing in general. This is me. I like to cap my downside risk. And I'm going to explain how I do that. And then I'll take that in the US, and I'll apply it to how I think it applies here in the Dominican Republic. Here's how I like to invest in the United States beyond just these three principles. Number one, I like conservative debt. I'm just gonna write that down here, conservative debt. Of all the deals I did with Quantum Capital, our loan to value when we got debt was like 60 to 70%. Pretty low loan to value, meaning we would raise 30 to 40% of the purchase price and then get debt for 60 to 70% of the purchase price. Now, I think that's a very important thing if you're looking at long-term weathering storms that might happen. Part of that conservative debt is that I like to have long-term fixed debt. In the commercial space, whether you're buying multifamily or storage units or trailer parks or whatever, you get commercial mortgages in the United States. Trust me, I'm going to bring this all back to DR. I know I'm getting in the weeds, but that's kind of what this channel is about, to get in the weeds. So when you buy a house, a 1, 2, 3, or 4 bedroom, you can get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage on that house, even if it's 4 units. The moment you get 5 units and above, or any of the other asset classes I mentioned, like storage or trailer parks, you need to get commercial debt. You can get amortization for 30 years on commercial debt, meaning the payments are spaced out as if it's a 30-year total loan, but there's a term that the loan will come due. They call it a balloon. Could be 3 years, could be 5 years, could be 7 years, could be 10 years, sometimes longer. And I like when things are long-term, when we see that they are 7, 10, or more years fixed before we have to worry about this rate becoming variable or selling the property. So conservative and long-term debt are two of the things that I prioritize in the US, and I'm going to bring that back here to DR. Number 3 is I like value-add plays. I don't want retail. I don't want like the top-notch stuff that's selling for the top dollar and relying upon the market to drive up the value. I want to buy stuff that is below market, distressed, ugly, if you will. Because if I can force value, it protects me from downside risk. So just making this a real example, let's say you're buying a property in a neighborhood that's worth $1 million full retail, but because it's distressed, you get it for $700,000 and you've got to put $100,000 into it to get it up to speed. So you're in $800,000, but you have $1 million property. Even if there's a downturn and I lose 10% of the value, I'm still positive. It's a $900,000 value on $800,000 worth of investment. And truthfully, that $800,000 is probably not all debt. When I bought it for $700,000, I probably had to put $140,000 down at least, which means my debt is $560 plus another $100K I had to put in. So I'm in $660 on a property worth $1 million, now $900,000. Even if I had to go to the bank and get a new loan for whatever reason, I've got room. That's why I like value add. And the last thing is with long-term fixed debt, I like long-term holds. I would rather have something that I'm going to have to hold on to for a while, likely, than try to flip out of a property. Now, long-term, I've sold all my properties. Long-term may mean, hey, here's the objectives I'm trying to meet. And for whatever reason, we met them in a year or exceeded them in a year, then that's long-term. Sell it. Be done with it. You've gone full cycle on your project. You've met investor prospectus objectives. But if I need to hold on to it for 6, 7, or 8 years in order to meet whatever goal I have or make sure that I don't lose on it, I can do that too. So I look for long-term holds. That's my value play instead of get in and get out quick. Now look, I've gone against my own principles twice, and I can share exactly what happened in each case very quickly, and then we'll talk about how all of this applies here in DR from my perspective. The first time was a deal in Arizona, a retail deal, Class A, top-notch multifamily property that I invested in with a company that was doing amazing things. But their entire philosophy was sort of in and out with the capital. So they use something called bridge debt, which is very short-term, like 2 years, interest only, and after 2 years, you need to sell or refinance in order to get rid of that debt and lock in something long-term. Or if you sell it, the property's gone. But what they did was they would refinance after 2 years, really relying on the value to go up with the market, along with some repositioning that they would do. They'd return a percentage of your initial investment plus your return, and then 2 to 3 years later, they would exit and send you the rest of your investment plus your return. But the moment rates went up, everything fell apart. Let me give you an example. We'll do it right here. Look at this tear my kids have put in this book, but whatever. So let's say that they bought a property for $10 million and they went loan to value of 80%, which would be $8 million in a loan. So that's what they owe the bank, $8 million. Now, if everything goes well, that value goes up and it's no problem. You sell or refinance, you pay off the $8 million with new long-term debt and you're done. But 2 years later, the rates went up. All the interest rates went up, which means values went down. So now this property that you got $8 million in debt on is actually worth $6 million. No, never mind. Not $6 million, $8 million. Sorry, is actually worth $8 million. So you have a $10 million property with $8 million in debt, and now it's worth $8 million, the same as the debt. And because the market had a downturn, banks become even more conservative and they don't want to go above, say, 70% loan to value. So now on this $8 million, you can only get 70%, which is $5.6 million in debt, and you owe $8 million to the bank to pay it off. You see That math don't math. Now remember, this is a $10 million initial purchase, which means this gap between 8 and 10, the 2 million, that is investor capital. That is money that I put in and others put in. Pardon my handwriting, I should have been a doctor. So what do you think happens if the only debt we can get is 5.6 million? It needs to be at least 8 million to pay off the original loan, which only has a 2-year term because the property is only now worth 8 million. Either the principal or the person that runs this deal has the difference and they could pay it in cash, or more likely, this property is going back to the bank and this money is gone. Now, in fairness to this one particular syndicator, they were communicative and they were on top of it. They didn't run away. They faced it and they said, hey, look, this is what's going on. This is what we're trying to do. Here's some ideas. And they got really honest when some of their deals just weren't going to pencil out. So for me being part of this 2 million, I think it was 25 or 50K, gone. I just wrote it off. It just is what it is. As they say in the investing world, you win some and you lose some. That's the way it goes, especially when you go against your own investment thesis. Now, I invested in a second deal that looked a lot like this one. Same sort of thing in Texas. High loan to value, retail, all the things I say that I don't like to do. And in that case, I know the owner. I know the founder fairly well. Not only did my 25 to 50K get wiped out in that second deal as well, but when things got really nutty, the founder, the guy I know, he did some things he shouldn't have done, and he was just convicted of wire fraud because I think he was trying to mask one thing to fix the other, and he just got ahead of his skis. Very sad story. But you could see how if you go against your own principles, again, mine, local, full cycle, and scar tissue. Now, both of those investments that I lost on were definitely, they had local people, they had gone full cycle, but they didn't really have any scar tissue, meaning they'd never gone through a downturn. They were kind of started investing on the upside. And then I just completely wiped all this out. There was no conservative debt. It was not long-term fix. It was only 2 years. These were not value-add plays. They were full retail, and they were not long-term holds. So none of that penciled out for me, but I still went forward with the investment because I felt like I was missing out. Now let's talk about the Dominican Republic with all of this stuff. Again, remember, I'm one who likes to mitigate risk more than know what the maximum return is. I'd rather protect my capital than maximize the return on my capital, which for me, all of these things, conservative, long-term fixed debt, and value-add plays, these are all ways that I believe you cap the downside risk and get a good return. But one of the risks here is that a lot of developers that are selling, they're selling in order to fund the actual construction. So it's money in, money into the deal. And if they don't have good reserves or enough money in reserve to take care of downturns, slowdowns, market corrections, whatever it might be, then that project may not get done. Now, some call that a scam. It's not. They were fully intending to get this thing built, but they weren't organized enough. They didn't have the working capital to weather any storm. That's more the risk than just being outright scammed, no matter what anybody tells you about DR. Scams happen. They happen in the US, they happen everywhere. But that term gets used a little bit loosely and liberally when it comes to a deal that's not going well in DR. Even delays. Oh, I'm getting scammed. For many Americans, if the money is overseas, if the project's overseas, anything other than perfection is a scam. And I think we just have to avoid that language. I don't know. It's sensationalist. But breaching a contract, being long on delivery, not getting the job done, or just, hey, this development didn't get taken care of, it didn't get built the way it was supposed to, and you've got some money in it. Just like I invested in a couple of projects that went sideways, it happens. But there are developers that do work with really good reserves to make sure that in the event of a downturn, a correction, or just things that happen, they've got enough money to weather the storm if they're not selling at the level that they may have once or that they anticipated. And the second part is there's no upside. Like I see people buying the cheapest possible property sometimes, and it's in a neighborhood like Verón or Friusa, which is fine. And I'm sure there's some upside, but most of the time, those neighborhoods are really reserved for more working class, workforce style housing. That's why you can buy an apartment for 80 grand there. Things could change, but those areas aren't necessarily earmarked for further development or growth, at least not for expats or investors. They're earmarked for more working class workforce households. In fact, in Punta Cana, you have a logistics hub that's completed behind Punta Cana Airport that's supposed to bring like 10,000 jobs. Some of them are really good. Some of them are going to pay like middle income wages in DR or more like toward the minimum wage. But either way, an area like Verón, like that's where it's going to grow, is in workforce housing, in my opinion. So like I mentioned, I went with a developer, and this is not at all a promotion, but I just want to use the developer I used as an example and all that I've learned about what they're doing. Developer's called Boardwalk Developments. The principal's name is Cheryl Henderson. So let's run through all of this so we can see how this fits. Cheryl is local. I see her at soccer games. I see her I saw her at an art charity auction recently. I see her everywhere. She's on every billboard in town. She's been here 20 years. Cheryl has gone full cycle. There's a project called Maple Beach. It's in Cortecito, which is an area to the north of Punta Cana, and it's there. It's built. There's titles issued. It's done. I can see it. I can physically see that, okay, she and Boardwalk Developments have gone full cycle on a project. And third, there's scar tissue. I asked her specifically about this, like, have you been scammed? And she shared examples of where she was. She even shared an example of a piece of land that she bought that somebody like marked the land with like a little pathway and then claimed that it's theirs. And because the surveying wasn't done yet and she didn't know, the courts sided with that person and a small section of the land that she purchased was annexed and given to the person who claimed it. So another time I was driving with her on a piece of land that she bought, I saw all these like rock walls being built over pathways. And she explained, yeah, that's to block and claim the land to make sure that that never happens to me again. I hate that she lost land because I like her, but I love that she lost land because it tells me that she's been through some stuff. Even permitting. She has a project right now called Sun Village that's delayed because of permitting. And I think it's either sold out or people have purchased in that property at least. But everyone I've talked to has said there's at least communication, there's options being given, and there is a commitment to get it done, but there's been some permitting delays. I'll discuss that on another video. Now, as far as these 4 things and how they apply to the projects I invested in with Boardwalk, one thing Cheryl said to me was, hey, look, I used to be a developer that would need to sell the property in order to build the property. She's like, that is exhausting. So instead, I'll partner with other people that come in with the equity. This way it takes a little bit of the pressure off of sales, and we're well funded in the event that we experience a little bit of turbulence. We don't have to get crazy with discounts and, taking prices down on people that already purchased in that unit and devaluing their asset. So while that's not necessarily debt, as I say here with long-term conservative, it is a way to mitigate risk and ensure that they are properly reserved. And there are other developers, some of you may know who they are, that are struggling right now with certain projects and delays, but they're well funded. They're well reserved. They have a way. Thirdly, here is value add. So I'm in 2 different things with Boardwalk. The first is in Cortecito, right next door to Maple Beach at a place called Maple Suites. And Maple Suites is almost done. I go there like once a month. I even document it on my main channel and show the progress of that property. Now, Cortecito itself is an area that I would call a value add play. It needs better drainage. It needs to be cleaned up a little bit. It needs better roads, although they fixed the roads recently. We'll see how long that lasts. And it probably needs a bit of a polish because it's got a little bit of like a lot of salespeople there, like people selling bracelets, solicitors. And for the type of clientele that some of these developers are trying to attract, that might not be the best thing. I also think the beach erosion issue needs to be addressed on Cortecito Beach, even though it's beautiful. And the road behind the beach could become walking traffic, and I hope it does one day. But again, I look for ugly value add. And when I look at Corrales right next door, and really just the general Punta Cana area and where investments are coming from the government, I'm bullish on what Cortecito will be. In other words, I don't see it going downhill. I see it going uphill. The other project is in a town called Magua, which is next to Miches. It's this big piece of land that Cheryl is developing into what she calls legacy Miches. Think Bávaro to Punta Cana, it's all Punta Cana. Magua to Miches, it's all Miches. That's the kind of energy that whole thing has up there. But it's beautiful. And I got this nice sized plot of land, about 1,250 square meters, because again, Miches is, in my opinion, an uncut gem, if you will. Like, it is on the up and up. It's only going to get better, more valuable, and everything. And for me, as far as holding long term, look, if Miches triples in the next year, maybe I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to sell that land. I doubt it. I kind of want to have that for my kids one day to have. And with the property we have at Maple Suites, I'm actually thinking about buying a second one there before they sell out, so that I have one for each of my sons as like whatever, college plan, something for them to leave to them. But I'm looking at it long term. I want to hold these properties for the long term. I believe in the upside value. I believe in the potential for cash flow. It's a beach neighborhood. It's a good Airbnb market there, et cetera, et cetera. Look, I'll leave you with 3 final thoughts that I'm going to write right here on this page for you to protect yourself and make sure as you're doing the vetting of a developer, if you're not going to use a realtor, or even if you are, to be honest with you, that 3 other things are really present for you. Number 1 is title. Title for the land is important. Now, one of 2 things could happen here. The developer could have title in the developer's name for the land that they're going to develop, or they could have a contract for transfer of that title. Title is more sure, contract is secondarily sure, and it really comes down to if it's a contract, all the other stuff we talked about the developer. For instance, that land in Magua Miches, when I bought there, when I committed, when I signed the paperwork, that land had a contract to transfer title. Since then, the title has transferred, from what I understand. But because I have faith in that developer, I'm okay with it being under contract. But there are some famous recent cases like Navasco, which is an alleged scam, where a lot of people lost money, some of whom put their entire life savings in, like Dominican people that put their whole life savings in and either lost it, or I'm hearing that the community that those projects are being built in are trying to recover and help those people, which is great. But a very simple way to have vetted this from everything I've seen, you would have seen that the properties that they were promoting, to my understanding, allegedly did not have contract or title in the name of the developer. So do they own the land? It's a simple but effective way to ensure that the developer has the property that they're actually going to develop. Now, the best way to ensure this is number 2, which is get yourself a great attorney. Attorneys will do this search for you. They'll know the ins and outs of the market, what's good, what's bad. They've got the network. And when you have a realtor combined with an attorney, even better. Again, nothing eliminates risk, but I believe for me, these things have mitigated risk, and I hope they do for you. And third, what I would say you need is a community, something that we didn't have when we first got down here. I go to these expat groups, but I gotta be honest, there are a lot of negative people in there. It was just, for me, draining. So on this one, honestly, like, we created what's called the DR Inner Circle. It's a few bucks a month to be a member of it, and we have ample discussion on different projects, developers. We have attorneys coming in and doing monthly office hours to answer questions, whether it's on real estate, business, or citizenship. We've got state of the market from top realtors here, North Shore, and so on. But more importantly, these people are talking, connecting, getting together, and learning from one another so they can avoid or mitigate risk in whatever it is they're trying to do. There are links down below in the description for my referral page. If you want an attorney, a mortgage broker, a realtor, I can refer you ones that I've worked with. Trust me, they will give me a referral fee more than likely if you use them. So know that going in. There is financial incentive for me if you use them. I want you to use somebody that you just love. So if you talk to the attorney I recommend, or one of the realtors you're like, I don't get down with this guy or gal, don't use them. They're just there if you need them. But secondarily, what I would really encourage you to do is check out the Inner Circle, which again is down below, or you can just use my name, jamiegruber.com, and jump into a thriving community of people that are talking and integrating this information into their day-to-day and sharing their own ups and downs, their own ways of vetting deals, their own perspectives, whether they agree with me or not. It's the beauty of it. It's a great community of people with real experience living in, moving to, or investing in the Dominican Republic. And we have people all over the world in the Inner Circle, all over the Dominican Republic even, in the Inner Circle. So I hope that helps. I hope that gives you a perspective on at least how I look at this stuff. Again, consult with the professionals, talk to the people you need to. But if you're gonna go the developer route, these are some simple ways for you to mitigate risk that I've used both here and in the United States. But at a minimum, form your own investment thesis, whatever that might be, and stick to it. I know when I don't, it hurts. Now, if you want to know the best way to get a great realtor, just click this video right here and I'll go through my 3 steps that I use to vet great realtors, not just any realtor here in country, because I think realtors are a great asset if you get the right one. And I'll see you on the next video.